Imagine it's your wedding day. Everything is perfect until your own sister stands up in front of 200 guests, points at you, and screams that you're a cheater. She even has proof on your own phone. She's smiling, thinking she's finally destroyed your life. But what she doesn't know is that I've been living in her shadow for 20 years, and I've finally learned how to fight back. I caught every single second of her sabotage on a hidden camera, and the revenge I'm about to show you is something she will never recover from. Before we get into this insane story of betrayal and ultimate karmic justice, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us bring more of these incredible stories to you every day. Trust me, you'll want to see how this one ends. Now, let's go back to where it all started, with a sister who couldn't stand to see me happy. From the moment I could form coherent thoughts, I understood my place in the family hierarchy. It was a simple, unspoken truth, etched into every family photograph and whispered in every hushed conversation. Seraphina was the star, and I, Elara, was merely her shadow. She was the elder, the prettier, the smarter, the one who effortlessly commanded attention and affection from our parents. Her laughter, bright and melodious, always seemed to drown out my quieter observations. Her achievements, whether academic accolades or social triumphs, were celebrated with an almost religious fervor, while my own modest successes were met with a polite nod. Quickly overshadowed by Seraphina's latest feat, our childhood, was a series of comparisons, each one a subtle jab that reinforced my secondary status. If I brought home a B, it was met with a sigh and a wistful mention of Seraphina's straight A's. If I wore a new dress, it was inevitably critiqued against Seraphina's impeccable style. I learned early on to temper my expectations, to find solace in books and quiet pursuits, far from the dazzling spotlight that perpetually followed my sister. It wasn't that I hated Seraphina, it was more a profound sense of resignation, a quiet acceptance of a role I hadn't chosen but was born into. Seraphina, on the other hand, reveled in her position. She was a master manipulator, her charm a potent weapon she wielded with effortless grace. She knew exactly how to twist a situation, how to play the victim, how to make our parents see things her way, even when logic dictated otherwise. Her beauty was undeniable, a striking combination of our mother's delicate features and our father's piercing blue eyes. She moved with an innate confidence, a self-assuredness that I could only dream of possessing. To her, the world was a stage, and she was the undisputed lead actress, with everyone else relegated to supporting roles. Then came Liam. He wasn't flashy or overtly charming in the way Seraphina's boyfriends often were. Liam was steady, kind, and possessed a quiet strength that drew me in. He saw me, truly saw me, not as Seraphina's quieter sister, but as Elara, with my own thoughts, dreams, and quirks. Our relationship blossomed slowly, built on shared laughter over obscure historical facts and comfortable silences during long walks. He was my anchor, the first person who made me feel like I wasn't just existing in someone else's orbit, but shining with my own light. When Liam proposed, it was a moment of pure, unadulterated joy. He got down on one knee in our favorite botanical garden, surrounded by blooming roses, and asked me to be his wife. I said yes, tears streaming down my face, feeling a happiness so profound it almost scared me. We shared the news with our parents first, who offered their congratulations, albeit with a slightly bewildered air, as if they hadn't quite expected me to be the first to marry. Then we told Seraphina. Her reaction was a masterclass in thinly veiled jealousy. Her smile was a little too wide, her congratulations a little too effusive. "Oh, Elara, how wonderful!" she'd exclaimed, her eyes darting between Liam and me, a flicker of something unreadable in their depths. "I always knew you'd find someone, eventually." The last word hung in the air, a subtle barb that only I would catch. Liam, ever the gentleman, simply smiled, oblivious to the undercurrents of sibling rivalry that had defined my life. As we began planning the wedding, Seraphina's passive-aggressive tactics became more pronounced. She'd offer unsolicited advice, always framed as helpful, but designed to sow seeds of doubt. Are you sure about that venue, Elara? It's a bit rustic, isn't it? Not quite what Liam's family would expect. Or, when I showed her a picture of my dream wedding dress, she'd sigh dramatically. It's lovely, dear, but perhaps a little safe? You know, something that truly makes a statement, like my dress would have. She even suggested a caterer known for their notoriously bland food, claiming they were simply divine and so affordable. Each suggestion was a subtle attempt to undermine my choices, to make me feel inadequate, to remind me that I was not as sophisticated or discerning as she was. I tried to brush it off, to focus on the excitement of planning my wedding with Liam. He was my rock, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to Seraphina's chaotic energy. He listened patiently to my frustrations, offering gentle reassurance and reminding me that this was our day, and nothing Seraphina said or did could diminish that. His unwavering support was a balm to my soul, a constant reminder that I was finally seen, finally valued, for who I was. But even Liam's steadfastness couldn't completely erase the sting of Seraphina's words. There was a part of me, a small, insecure part that had been nurtured by years of being in her shadow, that still craved her approval, her genuine happiness for me. It was a foolish hope, I knew, but old habits die hard. I kept telling myself that perhaps, just perhaps, she would come around. That on the day of my wedding, her sisterly love would finally triumph over her ingrained jealousy. How naive I was. The undercurrent of tension that had always existed between Seraphina and me intensified dramatically in the months leading up to my wedding. It wasn't just the usual sibling rivalry anymore. It felt sharper, more deliberate, fueled by a bitterness that seemed to consume her. The catalyst, I soon discovered, was the spectacular implosion of her own long-term relationship. Her boyfriend, a wealthy but notoriously fickle businessman named Julian, had unceremoniously dumped her for a younger model, leaving Seraphina not only heartbroken, but, more importantly, publicly humiliated. For someone who thrived on outward appearances and being perceived as perpetually successful, this was a devastating blow. Her personal crisis, instead of fostering empathy, seemed to magnify her resentment towards my burgeoning happiness. My engagement, once a distant, almost abstract concept, became a glaring symbol of everything she felt she was losing. She couldn't bear the thought of me, the shadow sister, achieving a milestone she had always envisioned for herself first. Her jealousy, once a simmering ember, now blazed into an inferno, distorting her perception of reality and turning her into a person I barely recognized. Seraphina's manipulation escalated from subtle digs to outright slander. She began a calculated campaign to poison our family's minds against Liam and me. Over family dinners, she would drop seemingly innocent comments, laced with venom. Liam is so generous with his money, isn't he, Elara? I hope you're not taking advantage of his kindness. Or, it's so sweet how Elara is finally settling down. After all those adventures she had before Liam. Each remark was designed to plant seeds of doubt, to make our parents question my character and Liam's intentions. She hinted that I was marrying Liam solely for his financial security, a notion that was both insulting and entirely untrue. She even fabricated stories about me having secret rendezvous with other men, painting a picture of a deceitful fiancé, all while maintaining an air of concerned sisterly love. Our parents, bless their naive hearts, were easily swayed. They had always seen Seraphina as the golden child, incapable of malice. Her tears, her feigned vulnerability, were potent tools she used to great effect. I could see the shift in their eyes, the subtle questions in their gazes, the way they would sometimes hesitate before defending me. It was a slow, insidious erosion of trust, and it hurt more than any direct confrontation ever could. I tried to reason with them, to explain Seraphina's history of exaggeration and manipulation, but they dismissed my concerns as pre-wedding jitters or sibling squabbles. "Oh, Elara, don't be so dramatic," my mother would say, waving a dismissive hand. Seraphina is just looking out for you. She's worried. Worried? Seraphina was worried about nothing but her own bruised ego. I knew it, but proving it to our parents felt like an impossible task. Their blind spot for Seraphina was a fortress I couldn't breach. Liam, however, remained my steadfast ally. He saw through Seraphina's thinly veiled attempts to create discord. He'd witnessed her behavior firsthand, the way her eyes would glint with something cold and calculating even as she offered a saccharine smile. "Don't let her get to you, love," he'd often say, pulling me into a comforting embrace. "I know who you are, and I know why I'm marrying you." Her words mean nothing to me. His unwavering trust was a powerful antidote to Seraphina's poison, a constant reminder that her machinations, while painful, could not truly harm what Liam and I shared. Despite his reassurances, a knot of unease began to tighten in my stomach. Seraphina's actions were becoming increasingly brazen, her desperation more palpable. I tried to convince myself that she would eventually tire of her games, that the sanctity of a wedding day would somehow temper her malice. But deep down, a chilling premonition began to take root. I knew Seraphina, and I knew that she wouldn't stop until she had found a way to steal my thunder, to make my special day about her, or, failing that, to destroy it entirely. The question wasn't if she would try something, but when and how. The closer we got to the wedding day, the more Seraphina's behavior oscillated between overly sweet and subtly sinister. One moment, she'd be offering to help with flower arrangements, her voice dripping with feigned enthusiasm. The next, she'd be making a snide remark about the cost of the catering, implying that Liam was being extravagant and I was being wasteful. It was a psychological seesaw, designed to keep me off balance, to chip away at my confidence. But after years of living in her shadow, I had developed a keen sense for her manipulations. I knew her patterns, her tells, the way her eyes would narrow almost imperceptibly when she was plotting something truly malicious. It was this intuition, honed by a lifetime of sibling rivalry, that led me to take a precautionary measure. I had seen the YouTube videos, the Reddit stories, the tales of wedding sabotage and family drama. And while I desperately hoped Seraphina wouldn't stoop to such lows, a part of me knew better. She had a flair for the dramatic, a need to be the center of attention, even if it meant creating chaos. So, a week before the wedding, I quietly purchased a tiny, high-definition security camera, no bigger than my thumb. It was designed for discreet home monitoring, easily hidden amongst decorative items. My plan was simple. I would place it in the bridal suite, the designated sanctuary where I, my bridesmaids, and my mother would be getting ready on the big day. It was a space that would inevitably be frequented by Seraphina, given her self-appointed role as my chief bridesmaid, a title she had bestowed upon herself, much to the quiet amusement of my actual bridesmaids. I rationalized it as a safeguard, a way to ensure that no precious items went missing or that no unexpected accidents occurred. But deep down, I knew its true purpose was to document any potential sabotage from my sister. The final days leading up to the wedding were a whirlwind of activity. Dress fittings, last-minute vendor calls, family arriving from out of town. Seraphina, surprisingly, was present for many of these events, playing the role of the supportive sister with an almost Oscar-worthy performance. She complimented my dress, gushed over the floral arrangements, and even offered to help organize the seating chart. Her sudden helpfulness was almost more unsettling than her usual snipes. It felt like the calm before a storm, a deceptive lull designed to lower my guard. Liam, ever observant, noticed my apprehension. "You're still worried about her, aren't you?" he asked one evening, as we sat on the sofa, reviewing the final guest list. I sighed, leaning my head on his shoulder. "It's just, she's too quiet. Too nice. It's not natural." He chuckled softly, stroking my hair. "Well, whatever she tries, we'll face it together. Nothing can ruin our day, Elara. Nothing." His words were comforting, but the knot in my stomach remained. On the eve of the wedding, I carefully placed the tiny camera in a potted plant on a high shelf in the bridal suite, its lens barely visible amidst the foliage. I tested it, ensuring it had a clear view of the main dressing area, the vanity, and the small table where personal belongings would likely be placed. A small red light blinked, confirming it was recording. A strange mix of relief and sadness washed over me. Relief that I had taken a proactive step, and sadness that it was even necessary. That my own sister had driven me to such a measure. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear, a perfect day for a celebration. The bridal suite buzzed with activity. Hairstylists, makeup artists, bridesmaids flitting about in a flurry of excitement. My mother, teary-eyed and beaming, helped me into my dress. Seraphina arrived a little later, looking stunning in her bridesmaid's gown, her smile radiant, almost too perfect. She offered me a glass of champagne, her eyes sparkling. "To you, little sister," she said, clinking her glass against mine. "May your day be as perfect as you've always dreamed." I smiled back, a genuine smile this time, a flicker of hope igniting within me. Perhaps, just perhaps, I had misjudged her. Perhaps, on this one day, she would set aside her jealousy and simply be my sister. It was a fleeting thought, quickly extinguished by a familiar prickle of unease. I caught her reflection in the mirror, her gaze lingering on my phone, which lay innocently on the vanity table, next to my bouquet. A subtle shift in her expression, a tightening around her lips. The game, I realized, was far from over. And my little camera, silently recording from its perch, was about to become a very important witness. The bridal suite was a hive of activity, a symphony of laughter, hairspray, and nervous excitement. My bridesmaids, a wonderful group of friends who had stood by me through thick and thin, were buzzing around, ensuring every detail was perfect. My mother, usually a whirlwind of anxiety, was surprisingly calm, her eyes shining with a maternal pride that warmed my heart. Even Seraphina, for a brief period, seemed to blend into the background, offering helpful suggestions and fetching forgotten items with an uncharacteristic meekness. I was in the midst of having my veil adjusted, my back to the vanity, when the moment came. I felt a slight shift in the air, a subtle change in the rhythm of the room. It was almost imperceptible, but my senses, heightened by weeks of anticipation and a lifetime of Seraphina's antics, registered it immediately. I glanced at my reflection in the mirror, catching a fleeting glimpse of Seraphina's hand hovering over the vanity table. My phone, which I had left charging there, was gone. My heart gave a small lurch, but I forced myself to remain still, my expression serene. I had anticipated this. I had prepared for this. Seraphina, with a practiced ease that spoke of prior rehearsals, had palmed my phone. She then excused herself, claiming she needed to check on the caterers, her voice a little too sweet, her eyes avoiding mine. I watched her go, a cold certainty settling in my stomach. The game was afoot. My little camera, nestled discreetly in the potted plant, was silently bearing witness. Minutes later, I heard the soft click of the bridal suite door closing. Seraphina had returned, a triumphant smirk playing on her lips, which she quickly masked as she rejoined the bridesmaids. My phone was back on the vanity, seemingly untouched. But I knew better. I felt a surge of adrenaline, a mix of anger and a strange sense of vindication. She had taken the bait. As the final touches were applied to my makeup, my mind raced. What had she done? What message had she sent? I pictured her, hunched over my phone, her fingers flying across the screen, crafting some malicious fabrication. The thought made my blood run cold, but also solidified my resolve. She would not win. Not today. Once the bridesmaids and my mother had left for the ceremony, leaving me alone for a few precious moments of quiet reflection, I retrieved my phone. My fingers trembled slightly as I unlocked it, navigating to my messages. There it was, a sent message to an unknown number, filled with incriminating details about a fictional tryst the night before. The language was crude, designed to shock and offend, utterly unlike anything I would ever write. It was a masterpiece of deceit, crafted to shatter Liam's trust and publicly humiliate me. But the true horror and the true genius of Seraphina's plan lay in the timing. The message was dated just hours before the wedding, implying a last-minute betrayal. It was designed to be discovered at the most opportune, or rather, inopportune, moment, during the reception, perhaps, or even worse, during the vows. She wanted maximum impact, maximum devastation. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, followed by a burning anger. How could my own sister be so cruel? So consumed by jealousy that she would actively seek to destroy my happiness? The years of being in her shadow, of silently enduring her barbs, flashed before my eyes. This wasn't just about a wedding anymore. It was about reclaiming my narrative, about finally stepping out of her shadow and asserting my own worth. I took a deep breath, steadying my hands. The evidence was there, clear as day, captured by my tiny, silent observer. I quickly transferred the footage from the camera to a secure cloud storage, then to a USB drive. I then deleted the incriminating message from my phone, ensuring no trace remained. Seraphina thought she was clever, but she had underestimated me. She had underestimated the quiet girl who had learned to observe, to plan, to anticipate. The shadow was about to step into the light, and Seraphina was about to learn that even shadows can cast long, dark consequences. The hours leading up to the ceremony were a blur of controlled chaos. My heart pounded a frantic rhythm against my ribs, a drumbeat of anticipation and apprehension. Liam, ever the calm in my storm, noticed my quiet intensity. "You're very focused," he observed, his hand gently squeezing mine as we stood at the altar, waiting for the procession to begin. I simply smiled, a secret shared between us, a silent promise of the storm that was about to break. After reviewing the camera footage and the fabricated messages, Liam and I had spent a tense hour devising our counterplan. His initial reaction had been a mixture of disbelief and fury, but his anger quickly solidified into a steely resolve. "She won't get away with this, Elara," he had vowed, his eyes hard. "Not after everything you've been through." His unwavering support was a powerful shield against the emotional turmoil Seraphina's actions had stirred within me. Our plan was simple, yet devastatingly effective. We would let Seraphina execute her scheme, allowing her to believe she had succeeded, only to pull the rug out from under her at the moment of her greatest triumph. The hidden camera footage, now securely stored and ready, would be our weapon. We had entrusted it to the wedding technician, a young man named David, who was both discreet and technologically savvy. He understood the gravity of the situation and promised to follow our instructions precisely. The ceremony itself was beautiful, a poignant blend of tradition and personal vows. As I walked down the aisle, my father's arm linked through mine, I saw Seraphina in the front row, her face a mask of serene beauty. Her eyes met mine, and for a fleeting second, I saw a flicker of something cold and calculating, a hint of the malice that lay beneath her polished exterior. I held her gaze, a silent challenge passing between us, a promise of the reckoning to come. Liam's smile, warm and reassuring, was my anchor, pulling me back to the present, to the love that filled the room. We exchanged our vows, each word imbued with a deeper meaning, a testament to our love and resilience. The kiss was sweet, a public declaration of our commitment, and as we turned to face our guests, a wave of applause erupted. The reception followed, a joyous celebration filled with laughter, music, and heartfelt toasts. For a while, I almost forgot the impending confrontation, lost in the euphoria of the moment. But then, as the evening wore on and the cake-cutting ceremony approached, a familiar tension began to coil in my stomach. The grand wedding cake, a magnificent tiered creation adorned with delicate sugar flowers, was wheeled into the center of the ballroom. The lights dimmed slightly, and a spotlight illuminated us as Liam and I stood before it, ready to perform the traditional cutting. This was it. The moment Seraphina had chosen for her grand reveal. I could feel her eyes on me, a predatory gaze from somewhere in the crowd. I took a deep breath, Liam's hand finding mine, a silent reassurance. The stage was set. The audience was ready. And Seraphina, unknowingly, was about to walk into her own trap. The air in the ballroom crackled with anticipation as Liam and I stood before our magnificent wedding cake. The photographer was poised, guests held up their phones, ready to capture the quintessential moment of marital bliss. Liam's arm was around my waist, his smile radiant, and for a fleeting second, I allowed myself to be fully present, to bask in the warmth of his love and the joy of our union. But then a familiar, unsettling presence made itself known. A sharp, piercing voice cut through the soft murmur of conversation and the gentle strains of the background music. "Stop. You can't cut that cake." All heads turned. Seraphina stood near the edge of the dance floor, her face a mask of manufactured distress, her eyes wide and glistening with what appeared to be tears. She clutched a small, elegant clutch bag to her chest, her body trembling slightly. The performance was flawless, designed to evoke sympathy and concern. A hush fell over the room, every eye now fixed on her. Liam's grip on my waist tightened almost imperceptibly. I felt his muscles tense, but I squeezed his hand, a silent signal to remain calm. This was her moment, the one she had so meticulously planned. I would let her have it. "Seraphina, what is the meaning of this?" our mother asked, her voice laced with a mixture of embarrassment and confusion. Our father, ever the stoic, simply narrowed his eyes, a frown deepening on his brow. Seraphina took a shaky breath, her voice rising in a dramatic crescendo. I can't let this happen. I can't let my sister make such a terrible mistake, and I certainly can't let Liam be deceived like this." She took a step forward, her gaze sweeping across the bewildered faces of the guests, clearly relishing the attention. "Elara, she's not who you think she is. She was with another man last night." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Whispers erupted, growing louder, more insistent. Faces turned from Seraphina to me, a mixture of shock, disbelief, and morbid curiosity in their eyes. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, but I forced myself to maintain a serene, almost detached expression. This was part of the plan. Her accusation, however vile, was merely a prelude. Seraphina, emboldened by the crowd's reaction, continued her tirade. "I found proof. On her phone. She was sending messages to him, planning to meet him even after her wedding rehearsal. It's all here." She dramatically pulled my phone from her clutch, holding it aloft like a damning piece of evidence. "I demand that these messages be displayed. Let everyone see the truth." She then pointed a trembling finger towards the large projection screen behind us, the one that had been displaying a beautiful slideshow of Liam and my journey together. "David, the technician. Show them. Show them what kind of woman Elara truly is." David, our discreet ally, looked at me, his eyes wide with a question. The room was silent once more, hanging on my response. Seraphina's triumphant smirk was back, a cruel twist of her lips that spoke volumes of her perceived victory. She thought she had me. She thought she had won. I took a slow, deliberate breath, meeting her gaze with a calm that belied the storm raging within me. Then I spoke, my voice clear and steady, cutting through the tense silence. "Thank you, Seraphina, for your concern." I paused, letting the irony hang in the air. "But I think David has a different video to show everyone. David, please, play the next video I prepared." Seraphina's eyes widened, her triumphant smirk faltering. A flicker of confusion, then dawning horror, crossed her face. The crowd, sensing a new twist in the drama, leaned forward, eager for the next act. The stage was hers no longer. It was mine. And the truth, long hidden in the shadows, was about to be unveiled. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by the soft whir of the projector as David, with a knowing glance, pressed play. The projector whirred, casting a stark white light onto the large screen. Seraphina stood frozen, her face a ghastly white, her eyes darting frantically between me and the screen. The triumphant smirk had vanished, replaced by a look of utter terror. The guests, still reeling from her accusations, watched in stunned silence, their attention now fully captivated by the unfolding drama. Then, the video began. It was a clear, high-definition shot of the bridal suite, exactly as it had been that morning. The camera, hidden discreetly in the potted plant, had captured everything. The first few seconds showed me having my veil adjusted, my back to the vanity. Then, the moment. Seraphina, with a furtive glance around the room, stealthily reaching for my phone. Her fingers, long and slender, expertly plucking it from the table. Her quick exit, then her return, a smug, self-satisfied expression on her face as she slipped the phone back into place. The video then cut to a close-up, a timestamp clearly visible, showing Seraphina hunched over my phone, her brow furrowed in concentration. Her fingers flew across the screen, typing furiously. The screen of my phone, though small, was just visible enough to show the incriminating message being composed, word for word. The cruel, fabricated details of a fictional tryst, designed to destroy my reputation and my wedding. And then, the final, damning shot, Seraphina's face, illuminated by the phone's glow, a malicious, triumphant smile spreading across her lips as she pressed send. The silence in the ballroom was no longer tense, it was absolute, broken only by the soft whir of the projector. Gasps erupted, followed by murmurs of disbelief and outrage. Faces that had been filled with judgment just moments before now turned to Seraphina with looks of disgust. Her carefully constructed facade had crumbled, exposed for all to see. Our mother, who had been standing beside Seraphina, her hand still resting on her arm, slowly withdrew it as if burned. Her face, usually so gentle, was contorted with a mixture of shock, betrayal, and profound disappointment. She looked at Seraphina, then at me, her eyes welling up with tears. "Seraphina," she whispered, her voice trembling, "how could you?" Our father, who had remained stoic throughout Seraphina's initial outburst, now strode purposefully towards her. His jaw was clenched, his eyes blazing with a cold fury I had rarely seen. He didn't say a word, but his presence alone was enough to make Seraphina visibly shrink. The weight of his disappointment was a far heavier blow than any verbal reprimand. Seraphina tried to speak, to stammer out an explanation, but no words came. Her mouth opened and closed, her eyes wide with panic, searching desperately for an escape. But there was none. The evidence was irrefutable, played out for every single guest to witness. Her carefully crafted image, the one she had so meticulously maintained for years, lay shattered at her feet. "Get out," my father's voice boomed, cutting through the silence like a knife. It wasn't a request, it was a command, delivered with an authority that left no room for argument. "Get out of my daughter's wedding. You are no longer welcome here." Two security guards, who had been discreetly positioned near the entrance, moved swiftly towards Seraphina. She resisted at first, her eyes pleading with our parents, then with me. But there was no sympathy to be found. The years of her manipulations, her jealousy, her cruel barbs, had finally culminated in this moment. She had pushed too far, and the consequences were now undeniable. As the guards gently but firmly escorted her towards the exit, Seraphina's composure finally broke. Tears streamed down her face, not of remorse, but of humiliation and self-pity. She cast one last venomous glance at me, a look of pure hatred that promised future retribution. But I met her gaze with a calm, unwavering stare. Her power over me was gone. The shadow had finally stepped into the light, and it was shining brighter than ever before. The ballroom erupted in a cacophony of chatter as Seraphina was led away. Guests turned to us, offering words of comfort and congratulations, their faces filled with a renewed sense of joy and relief. The air, once thick with tension, now felt lighter, cleaner. The dark cloud that had threatened to engulf our special day had been dispelled, replaced by the warmth of genuine celebration. Liam squeezed my hand, his eyes full of love and pride. We had faced the storm, and we had emerged stronger together. The cake, still waiting patiently, now seemed to beckon us to a new beginning, untainted by malice and filled with the promise of a beautiful future. With Seraphina's dramatic exit, a palpable sense of relief washed over the ballroom. The tension that had gripped the guests dissipated, replaced by a renewed spirit of celebration. The music swelled, laughter returned, and the clinking of glasses once again filled the air. Liam and I, hand in hand, finally cut our wedding cake, each slice a symbol of our triumph over adversity. The moment, once threatened by malice, was now sweeter, more meaningful, a testament to the strength of our bond. Our parents, visibly shaken but ultimately relieved, approached us with apologies and tearful embraces. My mother, her eyes still red from crying, held me tight. "I'm so sorry, Elara. We should have listened to you." My father, his voice gruff with emotion, simply nodded, a rare admission of fault that spoke volumes. It was a painful awakening for them, a realization of Seraphina's true character that had been obscured by years of favoritism and denial. While the wound of their blindness would take time to heal, this moment felt like a crucial first step towards a more honest relationship. The days and weeks that followed the wedding were a whirlwind of adjustments. Seraphina, true to my father's word, was effectively disowned. She was no longer welcome in our family home, and her calls went unanswered. The scandal of her public outbursts spread like wildfire through our social circles, fueled by the viral video footage that inevitably found its way onto social media. Her carefully cultivated image, the one she had so desperately clung to, was utterly destroyed. Friends, who had once flocked to her side, now distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with her toxic behavior. Her career, which relied heavily on her social connections, began to falter. The consequences of her actions were swift and merciless, a karmic retribution for years of unchecked malice. For Liam and me, however, it was a new beginning. Our wedding, far from being ruined, had become a powerful affirmation of our love and commitment. The ordeal had forged an even deeper connection between us, a shared understanding that we could face anything as long as we had each other. We embarked on our honeymoon, leaving the drama behind, and returned to build a life filled with mutual respect, unwavering support, and genuine happiness. We learned to cherish the quiet moments, the simple joys, and the profound peace that came from building a life free from manipulation and jealousy. Seraphina's downfall was complete. Her attempts to destroy my happiness had, ironically, led to her own undoing. She had lost her family, her friends, and her reputation, all sacrificed on the altar of her own bitter envy. The last I heard, she had moved away, unable to face the judgment and scorn of those she had once charmed. Her life, once seemingly perfect, had unraveled, leaving her isolated and alone. As for me, Elara, the shadow sister, I had finally stepped into my own light. I had learned that true strength lies not in outward displays of power or manipulative tactics, but in integrity, resilience, and the courage to stand up for oneself. My story, once defined by another's shadow, was now my own, a testament to the enduring power of love and the ultimate triumph of good over malice. The moral of the story was clear: those who seek to destroy the happiness of others often end up destroying themselves. And sometimes, the sweetest revenge is simply living your best life, unburdened by the bitterness of the past. And that is how my sister's plan to ruin my life ended up ruining hers instead. It's a harsh lesson, but it's a reminder that no matter how much you try to bring someone down, the truth will always find its way into the light. But I want to hear from you. Do you think I went too far by exposing her in front of everyone at the wedding? Or did she get exactly what she deserved? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one of them. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more insane stories like this one. Also, check out the video on your screen right now for another mind-blowing revenge story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.